Good morning. How is everyone today? Just waiting a few minutes to give folks a chance to join us this morning. Thank you for joining us for Financial Fridays. I am Crystal Parker, the Financial Education and Community Outreach Ambassador for Henrico Federal Credit Union, and it is great to be with you today. So today we are going to talk about establishing an emergency fund. Sometimes this can feel like a daunting task for many of us, but this is something that's really, really important for all of us to have. They say that for many Americans, having unexpected expenses of upwards of $500 or even $1,000 would be a crippling experience because there isn't the funds available in an emergency account for when those things happen. And so establishing an emergency fund is something really important for all of us to work towards. But sometimes, as I said, that can feel like a daunting task. So talking about how we do that can be really important. America Saves has a really great article that I'll post in the comments later that walks you through this too. But for some of us, we don't want to read all the words, we'd rather talk through it, and so that's why I'm here for you today. So we'll talk through it. So the first thing that we have to do if we want to establish an emergency fund is to take it day by day. It's not going to happen overnight. Maybe something great happens and we have a windfall and we have all this extra money that we have available to us, and that would be a great opportunity to then suck that money into savings. I know that for many of us, when we receive our tax refund during tax season, perhaps when we get a bonus at work, different opportunities like that for many of us, we want to spend that money. And that can be a great opportunity to put that money into a savings account to start building that emergency fund, because having that money for later is far more important for all of us. But if that doesn't happen, then just taking a little bit, whether it's each pay period, each month, but on a set routine, starting to put that money aside is really important for all of us to do. And sometimes what we can think about when we look at our budget, because I think that's something we always need to talk about, is having a budget. But look at your budget, figure out what are you spending your money on, is there anything that you could cut out? I think for some of us, we really love getting that morning cup of coffee in the morning. There's going to Starbucks and spending a few dollars, there's spending several dollars if you're getting a latte, maybe some breakfast. There's a difference in going to, say, 7-Eleven or Wawa, which is a little bit cheaper, or making the coffee at home. So big cost difference if we decide to not spend the money going out to get coffee, and that would free up a little bit of money that we could start stocking away. But looking through what that might be for each of us. It's hard to tell you what you should do because for each of us, our living situations are so different, so we have to look at those things. Another example of something to cut could be getting, not necessarily during COVID, because I'm not sure how many people are going to get their nails done, but painting your own nails. Those expenses add up when you're always paying someone else to do it for you. I have a friend who, because of what's been going on, hasn't been going to get her nails done, and she has really learned how to do this herself and never thought she would be the person to do her own manicure. So there's things like that where you can really start to save a lot by finding those little things to cut out of our budgets. The next thing is to make it easy on yourself, because if we make this too difficult, we're never going to save our money. But if your employer does direct deposit, split up some of your deposit. Put the bulk of it in your checking account, because we do have to spend most of our money paying our bills. Those are unavoidable, right? But the other piece is to then send part of it to your savings account, because if you automate that savings, it's making it easier for yourself to do the things that you need to do. Sometimes personal examples can be really helpful. My husband and I put the bulk of our funds in our credit union account to pay our bills. We then have part of it set the day after I get paid to immediately get some of it transferred over to savings. So I just have an automatic transfer set up through the credit union. They were really great about helping me set that up. Or the other option that, that's what we do with my paycheck, but then for my husband, we then take part of his and we actually put it in a separate savings account somewhere else so that it's a little bit harder to touch. So it could be, having that other savings account at the credit union, perhaps it's on a separate member number. So he has his own member number, I have my own member number, and so those things are separate. So we have to make an intentional choice to transfer those funds over to use for a purpose. But having that direct deposit set up or those automatic transfers created, make it easy for yourself to start that habit of creating that emergency fund. And you don't even think about it because it's just done for you. And you'd be surprised how quickly those funds can start to build up. And then the added benefit is you start to see those dividends accruing. So quarterly, when you're receiving those dividends on your savings account with a balance over 100, you're starting to see that reward for saving your money. Personally, I'm a big fan of seeing those dividend deposits, and that's a motivator to get that number to keep going up because I'm saving more. The other thing is to remember to not let debt get in your way. For each of us, debt can be different. Having a mortgage is good debt, but there are many of us that want to pay that off quickly. But it's really important to look at what your debt is, look at what those interest rates are, because interest can really be a doozy, and assess which things need to be paid off more quickly. So if you have credit card debt that has a really high interest rate, really focusing on paying that down is crucial. Of course, we need to pay all the debts that we have. You can't not pay things, but you can also make a concerted choice to pay extra on something to get that debt paid down. An example would be looking at my mortgage versus my auto loan versus my student loans. I have some student loans that don't have an incredibly high interest rate, but I have some that have a very high interest rate versus, say, my auto loan that doesn't have a high interest rate because the credit union has great rates. But I really made a concerted effort to focus on that student loan with a really high interest rate to target that and get it paid down faster. So there's things like that that you can focus on. And if you have really high debt, focusing on paying those things off before building up that huge savings account is crucial, okay? Because you're paying all this money in interest, it's taking money away from you that you would have to put towards that savings. So focus on getting that debt paid down so that you can then focus really hard on paying off, building up that savings account for those emergencies that might happen. Another thing to talk about is deciding how to keep those funds accessible-ish, okay? You don't want the funds to be too easy to get your hands on because then you're going to spend that money and you won't have it when you do need it. So remember how I talked about having those I have multiple savings accounts, some under my husband's member number, some under mine. The one that's right under mine, I can see it in digital banking and it's easy to go, oh, I could just transfer the money over and spend it. But that's not going to be helpful, okay? So make sure it's accessible-ish, that you don't want it to be too difficult to access. So say having it in a certificate of deposit, those are great because they will earn more interest, but those are also things where you would have to pay a fee of an early withdrawal penalty. And so if an emergency happened, that might not be your best option. So thinking through what kind of savings account is your best option. So emergency fund, typically best to have it in a savings account, not necessarily in a CD. But once you've built that up a good portion, you could have some allocated into, say, a share certificate. Okay? And then the other thing is to not stop with building up an emergency fund. Once you reach a goal, say your initial goal is to have $100 in there, and then perhaps your next goal is to have $500 in there, and then you want to build that up to 1,000. I always say it's really important to have SMART goals, so making sure that your goal is achievable, that if you could put $10 $10 and pay period it into your savings account. And then before you know it, you'll already be at that $100 level, and then you can increase it to $1,000. So making it something that you can do, but keeping those goals growing. Do we have any questions this morning? You think you have questions? Do you have an emergency fund? No. So small ones might not need an emergency fund quite yet. Having an established savings account can be really important. And we'll definitely talk about how to get your children saving in a future Financial Friday. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you next week for another Financial Friday. Have a beautiful day, everyone.